Today I'm going to go over our journey to a minimalist lifestyle, even with a large family. It is possible. And I'm going to share some thoughts on minimalism as well. Let's get started. And real quick, please don't forget to subscribe for more videos on money, minimalism, and our travel journey around the world. We publish a new video every Friday. So I think you can capture the concept of minimalism in 2 words: intentional ownership. That's why my book is called Intentional Children. It has a lot to say on minimalism and finances, of course, but it kind of combines them. But that's how I define it: intentional ownership. Minimalism has a lot less to do about the actual number of things you own than people think, in my view of it. But it has everything to do with the reason you own those things. It's just simply about being intentional with every single thing you bring into your home, and intentionally knowing why you have everything that's in your home already. And if you want to take it a step further, it does go into things like your time and your relationships. Minimalism is sort of a mindset. Intentionality, being intentional. I know it's the popular phrase that everyone says. Intentional is a big word now, but that's because it's an important word. It's simply about cutting out everything you don't need and keeping the things you do need across the spectrum. And I think everyone should consider a minimalist lifestyle, or at least take some of the influences from it. And the concept actually dates back at least 2,000 years, because Jesus was a minimalist before it was cool. So let's look real quick. Matthew 8:20 says, "And Jesus said to him, Foxes have holes and birds of the air have nests, but the Son of Man has nowhere to lay his head." There you have it. Jesus was a minimalist. And the label minimalist isn't the important part. Labels rarely are. It's a way to group people and categorize things and give people an idea of things that you believe with just one word or one topic or label. But the label itself isn't that important. Just like being a Christian, the label of being a Christian, the word Christian, especially maybe with what some people think of when they view Christians and they hear that word, it's not as important. I mean, you can call yourself a Jesus follower, you can call yourself a new Jew. Wouldn't call myself that, but it's you can call yourself that. You new Jew, but it can be off-putting. Anyways, whether you like the word and you want to call yourself a minimalist or not, the idea behind it can be very rewarding and help you to focus on the things that truly matter. And then on the other spectrum, calling yourself a minimalist and not doing any of the things that are associated with minimalism, that doesn't help either. Unless, of course, you've always lived like a minimalist, but if you're an American, you probably haven't. You haven't. Yeah, you haven't, right? So when Jesus was crucified, we know that he had a handful of possessions. They were fighting over his possessions. And we know that he lived a very minimalist life. He didn't have a whole lot of things. He focused on the things that truly mattered. He focused on people. He focused on leading people to God. He focused on the important stuff, not on material possessions. And that's no secret. So should we follow in Jesus' footsteps and get rid of everything we own and only own like 2 things? Yes, of course. Well, no. Okay, I mean, you don't have to. You can, but it's not necessary. But you can. If you feel compelled to do that, then go for it. You new Jew. Okay, so let's talk about possessions and judgment, because it's a big topic. It's not wrong to own things. It's not wrong to have material possessions, and nobody truly wants to get into a debate over how many things we should have, or putting a number on it, unless you're doing some sort of challenge or something like that. Like, nobody really wants to get into that debate, for good reason, because we could all be judged by someone else, and that's why we just don't judge. So for example, the Christian or anybody really with a $100,000 house could easily judge someone with a $200,000 house and say, you're materialistic. Like you don't need a $200,000 house. Look at me, I have a $100,000 house. But then the third world Christian person, whoever, who's living in a hut, or doesn't have a home, or the homeless person, they could judge the $100,000 house person. And again, this is why you don't want to do it, because someone could always judge them, and it's just not a good idea to get into like an argument or a debate over how much you should own and at what point are you materialistic, because it's definitely based on your heart and it's not based on the number of things you own. The point is, there will always be people with more than you. There will always be people with less than you. There's no magic number. And if there is a line, if there is some sort of number or some sort of way to know when you maybe are materialistic, is if your material possessions do start to affect your relationship with God, your relationship with other people. If your material possessions are running your life in any way, then at that point you're definitely over the line. Like, you own too much. You care too much about your stuff. You might not even own that much, but you just care too much about your stuff. So it's more of a heart thing. It all comes back to the heart and how you view things and possessions and stuff versus relationships and your relationship with God and your family and the important stuff. So I've met rich people who were truly generous, and they gave a ridiculous amount of money, and they gave a not just amount of money, but a percentage of their income or a percentage of their wealth. They gave a lot of it. But I've also met poor people who judged everyone they came in contact with, and I've known Christians who have lived a poor life because they believe that we're called to live in poverty. I don't believe that's necessarily true as well, though some people might be. Again, it's all very personal, but it can go either way. So that was just a few words on minimalism and kind of our view of it and how we see it and why we are attracted to it. But let's get into a little bit of our minimalism journey. We were actually in the process of downsizing our house in Oklahoma whenever we got the notification that we were going to be moving to Europe and we were going to be moving to Italy. We got to Italy and realized that Europeans don't own as much stuff as Americans. Who knew? Like, very, very different in the amount of things they own. Just very, like, they're almost minimalist by default. Now I'm in Japan, so it's going to be even more so, but Americans definitely own a bunch of stuff. So what did that mean for us when we moved to Italy? It meant that we went from a 2,000 square foot home into an 1,100 square foot home, but we still had 2,000 square foot worth of stuff to fit into this home. And at first it sounds kind of stressful, and it was, but we liked the idea of being forced to downsize. Like, we literally got in a smaller house because there were some options for huge houses, but we didn't want to pay to heat and cool a 4,000 or 5,000 square foot home that was meant for 3 families. So we were forced to downsize, and it was a good thing because it was uncomfortable until we started to get rid of things. We realized that we had even more stuff than we thought we did, and we definitely had way too much stuff. So it was kind of a forced downsize. And on top of that, it's not easy to get rid of stuff in Italy. They don't have an abundance of thrift stores. There's not a whole lot of places to take your donations. A lot of stuff ends up just getting thrown in the trash or getting recycled in some cases. But we were able to work out an arrangement with some refugees that we met that were in need of a lot of stuff. We were in need of giving away a lot of stuff. So I'll link the story below about that, but my wife actually worked it out and it was really awesome. So I wouldn't say that downsizing is easier if you force it, because it's probably a little more difficult, but it's more likely to happen if you force it. So if you decide to make a huge change, I think sometimes big changes can be an important step to change your life in general. You can make a big change and you can kind of start fresh. Moving into a smaller home is a great way to get started with minimalism. It's a big way to get started with minimalism, but it's a great way if you really want to get rid of stuff, and then you're forced into a smaller house and you still have all this stuff and you have to start getting rid of it if you want room and open space to think and walk around your house. So on this journey, and especially through our 4 years in Italy and now that we're in Japan, the average family gains about 1,000 pounds worth of stuff every year. That's pretty standard. We actually lost, we were 2,000 pounds lighter when we left Italy than we were when we got there. So not only did we gain 4,000 pounds in those 4 years, but we lost 2,000 pounds overall. So it's kind of like 6,000 pounds gone, I guess, if we would have kept gaining. But we were just very intentional and then getting rid of stuff. It was very intentional about it. So that's our journey and kind of how we got to where we're at and what we're doing now. We still haven't arrived. We are still becoming minimalist, as Joshua Becker would say. Like, we are still on this path, on this journey, and it's probably going to be even more so here. I don't know for sure. There's a good chance that we're going to get a smaller house. We're still homeless in Japan. We haven't found a house yet. Homeless, that's why the beard, but no, not really. But we don't have a home yet, so that's true. But it's probably going to be smaller than our home in Italy, so we are going to have to downsize even more so. So I'd love to hear your experiences with minimalism. If you are trying to do it, if you want to do it, if you have done it, if you feel like you're done with it, whatever the case, comment below and let me know your experiences. And before you go, please remember to subscribe for more videos on money, minimalism, our travel journey around the world. If you are interested in raising intentional children, check out my new book, Intentional Children. I'll put a link to that below. That is all for today. I will see you next week.